Okay, today is Wednesday the 12th of July in the year 2017. I am with my grandma, Arlene Rigby, and we're gonna, well, Grandma, what's your full name?
Arlene Barnett Rigby.
Okay, and when were you born?
January 5th, 1932.
And what were some of your family's traditions when you were growing up?
Well, I don't, I know that we did a lot. My family, the older brothers and sisters, because my parents had 4 children, and then 10 years later they had me. And so they were older, but I know that they played a lot of games and did a lot of things. The boys loved to go fishing, and so I remember going along and playing along the, you know, and we were very family oriented. We did a lot of things together, and my mama was, the last 5 years of her life was pretty well confined to home. And if they wanted her to go any place, they'd have to, my 2 older brothers, Wilmer and Maurice, would pick her up and carry her down the porch steps, and then they'd pick her up and take her back in, because she couldn't walk up them because she had a bad heart. And she couldn't bend over to pick up anything, so as a little girl I was good at running around and helping Mama if she dropped something or something. And but she was always cheerful and very, very talkative and happy, and as a little kid, that's about my memories of what they did when they were all at home.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so now skipping ahead to, well, not ahead, but to a different generation, do you have any memories of your grandparents?
Yes, I do, because when Mama died, my grandmother had died when I was 5 years old, Grandma Barnett. But Grandpa Barnett and his daughter Pearl, who had never married, they came and moved in with us when Mama died. And so they were there, and I remember my sister Maria worked at the theater, and I remember one night I ended up home alone by myself. Of course, I wasn't thinking very much about it, because I called Maria on the phone and told her at work that I was scared, and she said, "Well, honey, just go downstairs and Grandpa and Aunt Pearl are there. You're not alone." Oh, okay. So I've been sitting in a chair back in the corner of the living room, just looking around, wondering who was going to come in and get me as a little kid. So I went down, and Grandpa got a table, and we played some games and things until
Oh, that's neat.
Daddy got home.
So Grandpa was a big part of your life then?
Oh yes, yes, he was.
That's wonderful. Okay, now skipping to how you met Ralph, my grandpa. Can you tell a little bit about the first time you met him, maybe when you saw him, what you first thought, and then kind of how it developed from there?
Well, your grandpa was a very interesting Casanova. And the first time, okay, when in 1950 I was entering my sophomore year at BYU. My father had been superintendent of schools for about 15 years there in Spanish Fork, and he'd been 15 years down in Juab, and BYU came to him and wanted him to come and teach in their education department. So that summer, they built the family home there in Provo on 8th North, and moved over to Provo. So my first year at BYU, I lived in an apartment with a bunch of girls from Spanish Fort, 5 of us. And then when they moved over, then they had a bedroom in the basement for me, and then there was an apartment down there, and we had a bunch of four girls move in that apartment. So it was just like I was living in an apartment with the girls, because there were always kids there to do things with. And so then I lived at home until I got married. So it was kind of different, but it was fun.
Yeah. So Grandpa moved into your ward. No, you moved into Grandpa's ward when your family moved to Provo, right?
Yes.
And this was when you were in college?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So when you first met Grandpa or saw him, what did
Okay,
you think?
because Grandpa was working at the theater and worked Sundays. We moved in August, and I don't think I met Grandpa until January,
Okay.
because he was, and they called me to teach junior Sunday school at that time.
Okay.
And so I was teaching in junior Sunday school, and he made it to sacrament meeting. He usually came in late, and so we never even saw each other. And so I had met Bob Thompson, a good friend of Grandpa's, and started dating him. And this one night, we picked up Ralph at the theater. Or no, we picked up, yeah, and where he worked. And we went down to there was a place where all the college kids went, and they had bowling alley and stuff like that. And we went down there, and this girl came in and met Grandpa. And so she was there with him, and they did some bowling and had you know, just a lot of fun. And then it was about, I guess 9:45, and your Grandpa said, well, hey guys, I gotta go, because I promised my mother I'd be home by 10 o'clock. And so I thought, wow, this is some kid. And so we hurried and took his quote date home, and then we hurried back to the theater and picked up his girlfriend that was getting off at 10 o'clock. And finished our evening of playing games and stuff, and then we had to take her to American Fork, because that's where Wilma lived, and home. And so that was my introduction to Casanova Rigby.
Oh, that is too funny. So Bob was from Idaho, is that right?
Yes. Uh-huh.
So he was going to school at BYU?
Yes.
And that's how you met him?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's funny. Oh, that is too funny. Okay, so then later, obviously Bob was no longer, you weren't dating Bob, you started dating Grandpa, but how did that happen?
Well, first of all, he hired me to work at the theater, and I was in the snack bar, and of course he was kind of the assistant manager, so he was wandering around it. But then he spent a lot of time there at the counter of the snack bar, visiting with me and talking about me, about all of these girlfriends he had. And it was not an uncommon thing for him to call me and say, Arlene, will you run over to the dorm? Because we lived just a half a block west on 8th North, and the girls' dorm was on the University Avenue and going east. And he said, I can't get through, and I need to talk to so-and-so, and so I'd run over, find her, and tell her to call her out. And so Bob and I double dated with him a lot of times, all through that winter.
Okay.
And he dated a lot of nice girls, but there were a couple of them that he spent more time with than the others. And so that was my introduction to him, was And that's why I called him Casanova Rigby, because that's kind of what he was.
Oh, that is too funny. So what made the two of you decide to date then?
Well, I remember that it was after the first week of school the next year, and he came over and got me, and we went for a ride and went up on the university campus and out by the Brim Hall building on the hill there, and he just started talking to me, and I thought, he's just been checking out who came to school this year. He hasn't seen anybody interesting yet. So he asked me if I'd like to go with him. So that's when we started dating.
Okay.
And so Bob had not come back down to school that semester, and so then when he got back down to school, it was the next summertime, and Ralph had gone down to Bryce Canyon to work for the summer, and so Bob just said, he said, "Oh, I don't know what's going on with you and Ralph." And I said, "Well, I really don't know." So I left him sitting on the front porch, and I went in and called Ralph down at Bryce. And I said, "Bob's here and wants to know what's going on with us." And he just kind of laughed. He said, "Oh, I don't know." So I told Bob, I said, "He doesn't know, and I don't know, and you don't know." So Bob turned around and went back to Idaho. Ralph came home, and we started dating steady, so by the time Bob got down there the next time, then it was
Then you knew. Oh, that's too cute. I love that. Okay, so what was your courtship like from that point on?
Well, Ralph told me that his birthday's in May, and his mama had a birthday party for him. And Bob and I had been to a dance someplace, and I had this pretty yellow ballerina dress on. And he said, when you walked in my door at my house, he said, I knew that I wanted to date you. And so I guess it was a yellow dress that turned it, I don't know. So that's all I know. So when Bob was gone, then he moved in. So.
Okay. So that would have been, what was that time period? In May, you said?
Uh-huh.
By Grandpa's birthday? Okay.
Yeah.
And then what happened
and then
from there?
we just dated until Christmas Eve. He asked me if I wanted to get engaged, and I said, well, I have to think about it. Oh dear, it was just really funny. But then I decided yes, and so I wore his class ring from then until we finished that school year, and then in June he got drafted to go with the Army, and so I had graduated in May, and so I'd signed a contract to teach. So I started teaching school. He was gone with the Army, and then he came home in November, and we got married on a 10-day furlough, and then he shipped overseas and was gone for 19 months.
That's wild.
That was hard.
So did he help plan the wedding? Or did your parents plan the wedding, or how did that work back then?
I think his mom may have helped some, But basically, my folks took care of the wedding.
Okay.
So
he could focus on his basic training and
yeah, I guess
you were teaching.
I did.
So.
I wasn't down there, so I did go down to visit him once while he was down there.
Okay.
And, it was very interesting to see what they were doing and all. But
yeah.
And we had some friends that they had gotten married, and so I stayed with them when I went down. I was there, I think, for 3 days at Fort Ord. But it was good.
Okay, so describe your wedding day.
Well, perhaps I should say, what I was just saying about happened before we were married.
Okay.
When I went down and visited him.
Yes.
Okay. What did you ask me?
Describe your wedding day.
Oh, the wedding day. Okay, we were married at the Salt Lake Temple, and we went through on a session and took out our endowments because neither one of us had been, and then we had the sealing, and it was beautiful. Marky Peterson, one of the general authorities, was a good friend of the Rigbys, and he married us. And then we went to a place called the Dollhouse and had a little wedding breakfast there. And I guess we were there probably till around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And then we just went down and went to my folks' place and were there. And then, because I had an apartment in Spanish Fork, then that's where we were going to stay. And we started there, and Daddy had to have some root beer. He loved these soda pop. And I didn't want to go to the drugstore in Spanish Fork to buy it because, of course, I knew everybody and I didn't want everybody making a fuss. So we stopped in Springville, and he went into the drugstore there and bought him a party pack root beer. And then we went on over to my apartment, and we stayed there that night. And it was, I guess it was late when we got there, but I don't know if we had a usual night or not. We got along okay, and that was good.
And your reception was on BYU campus, right?
Yes.
Okay.
In the Joseph Smith building.
Okay, and was that the same night, or was that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, no.
No, okay.
No, it was the next night.
The next night, okay.
Mm-hmm.
That breaks up the day a little bit,
Yeah.
but it's usually a pretty long day. Okay, and what do you remember about your reception?
I just remember that there were lots and lots of people come, and it was a very happy time, and so many good friends and all, and it was just really a neat thing, and I appreciated the effort that everybody made to come, because we did have a lot of people come and welcome us. And for a lot of my Spanish Fork people, that was their first chance to meet Daddy. And it was just a nice reception.
Good. Okay, so let's see. Do you have any funny stories or any stories that just what comes to mind when you think about Grandpa, about Ralph?
Well, I don't know, because really Grandpa was a very he was just a very outgoing friendly man, and he had a lot of friends, and he always liked to be going and doing, and he was very, he liked to read, and he liked to visit with people. He was not a dish doer. And but he was good at encouraging the kids to help me. And he was a good husband. He worked hard to see that we were taken care of and things were good at home. And for a number of years I was without a car because we just had one car, and well, we were when he came home from the service, and he didn't let me know he was coming. And I just heard this knock on the door about 5 o'clock one morning and opened the door, and there he was. But I had heard that he was on his way because he had come home with a buddy, and the buddy had seen my mother there in Provo and had told her that Ralph had come with him. And so I knew that he was coming, but
Okay.
didn't know then.
Was
when
he trying
it would
to
be.
surprise you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so it was good, and he was glad to be home. And he'd had some good experiences. He didn't serve in the war like a lot of them had to, but he was an office clerk for one of the leaders of his group. Can't remember now what they called him. And but he made some good friends in the Army, and a lot of them came to BYU, and he still had a year of school to finish when he got back. So we moved out of my apartment, moved to Provo, and this was in May when he came home, and I had signed a contract to teach at Provo High School instead of Spanish Fort because we were moving back to Provo. And in those days they wouldn't let you teach if you were pregnant. That was an absolute no-no. And so I had a professor at BYU that had had a baby, and so she took my contract at at Provo High School, and I tended her little girl that year. And then Susan was born in March of that next year.
Okay. And then you were done teaching?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, until after the kids were raised, and then I taught for 13 years, older, when the kids were older.
Okay.
But I did preschool then, and I loved it.
And you loved it. You are good with kids, Grandma. Okay, let's see. So then share some memories or family traditions of your children that you guys had when your kids were little.
Well, we tried to have the tradition on holidays of doing certain things and getting together, and maybe places we would go, and games that we liked to play, and things. We had a game where you put corks on strings and put them there and hit it with the lid, and the little kids, when they loved to play that, and we played that a lot when they were smaller. And we just did a lot of family-oriented things through the years. That we tried to make birthdays special, and we tried to make Christmas special, and we didn't have a lot of money, but we did have something for everybody, and they were always glad to get it, so it was good.
That's neat. Okay, So, this is about you. What do you feel are some of your talents? I didn't prepare you for this one.
Oh.
Just throwing it on you.
Well, I don't know. I personally have felt like I was good at, in the earlier years, I was a good friend to a lot of people. It's one of the things I feel bad about now because I have not kept in contact with as much as I should have done, I don't think, with a lot of the friends, but every once in a while I still get in, we get together with the friends that I lived with in the apartment there in Provo, and we have gotten together with the crowd I ran with in high school, and I still have some good friends that I've made each place we've lived, and every once in a while get in touch with them, but I feel like I maybe have been able to help some, and a lot of them have helped me, and it's been good.
That's a great talent. Okay, so how do you, what other talents? I can think of some musical abilities, piano, other things.
Well, I did a lot of singing when I was younger, and I sang with the teenette group, and that was really a rich experience, and I still get together with them every once in a while, and we sing and sing and sing.
Oh, that's neat.
And then in earlier years, I like to do, I've never been a crocheter. I did during the Second World War knit scarves for the soldiers because Mother was in charge of the Red Cross things, so I learned how to knit and did scarves for the servicemen during the Second World War. And I have always enjoyed doing, I don't know if you could call it, I have thousands of stories because I love collecting stories, and that's one of my projects. I just thought today, you got to get in and get all those things straightened out because you're not going to be here forever and nobody will know what to do with them if you don't. And so you might say I'm a collector of all different things, but it's good.
It is good.
I've collected some good things, but they're not any use the way they are. I've got to do something about them.
We all have that problem. I also think you're a great writer. You're amazing with family history.
Well, and I have enjoyed doing those family histories. When I did Grandpa's, I felt good about it, and Mother's, I felt good about. I really don't know that I did justice to Mama's because I was only 8 years old when she died, and I've had very little contact with her family since because they all lived in California, and I did go down a couple of times, even after we had our kids and we went to California. We stayed with my Aunt Nelda,
Okay.
and went to visit Aunt Dion, so I kept contact with them. But not like, closeness if we had still been a family, but they were good people. Uncle Reed was in the service and gone a lot because he made it was his career, military career all his life. And so he and Aunt Jessie traveled a lot, and then Aunt Jessie settled in Ogden and was there when he could come home, and then we did see a little bit more of him than we had done before. It was good to be able to do things with family, and Aunt Pearl was my dad's sister, and she never married, and she just kind of mothered me. And she's the one that was the piano teacher, and so she taught me to play and taught me to do what I do on the organ, and was very, and when I lived in the Booth Motel, she lived in the motel right next to me, and so we had a good relationship there for about 3 years. That was neat. And then she and Grandpa had lived with us when Mama died, so Aunt Pearl was always special to me.
That's really neat.
Does that answer what you wanted?
Yes, that's perfect. Okay, so this is just when we were at the reunion, I was asking for the grandkids and the aunts and uncles to share their memories of you or Grandpa. The story came up of when you were little and you were gambling. Do you remember that? Do you know what story I'm talking about? The adults were doing something, playing games in a room, and the kids were over playing something. So will you tell us that story?
Okay. In the early years, my whole family, the Daddy's whole family gathered at Aunt Nida's. And we had nice Thanksgiving dinner, and we had, you know, sometimes we'd go outside and play, and sometimes the weather wasn't conducive at Thanksgiving time to do that. And I remember this one time particular because the parents were, older people were all in the living room, and we had gone off into a little side room that Aunt Nida had, and we were shooting craps. And that didn't go over very good. Somebody came in to check on us and saw what we were doing. So. But we were having a good time. And we probably didn't know what we were doing or anything, but funny. They were a good bunch, and it was fun. I had a lot of cousins my age where I didn't have brothers and sisters, you know. So we had, and I did stay pretty close to those cousins most of my life. They all passed away now, but I don't know why I'm still here, and I hope I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. So.
You're doing amazing. You hold our family together. You do. So, what are some of your strongest memories of Mama? Of your mom?
Well, like I say, Mama's health was poor for the last 5 years of her life. She couldn't bend over to pick up anything. She couldn't walk up a step. She couldn't. And when they would go any place, my brother Maurice and Wilmer, they kept their hands like this and make a little chair for her, and she'd sit down on the porch, and then they'd carry her down the steps or carry her up the steps or wherever they were in the need to be to carry her someplace. And I have memories of watching that and thinking how good they were to Mama, you know. And then I know that for the last, well, probably the last 2 years, she was mostly bedridden. We had a hired girl that came in and stayed, so there was somebody there with her all the time because the older ones were married and gone by then, except for Maria and Dale. And Dale was serving his mission when Mama died. And they did let him come home for the funeral. And then he went back and finished his mission, just about. And then he told the mission president, he said, I've got to go home. He said, my dad needs me, I've got to go home. And so they released him 7 weeks early. And then he was killed. Not too long after that, 7 weeks was up. So I was grateful for that because I remember the day he was killed, my dad took it so hard. And that's life. He was good to me too. And he took me places. And sometimes I'd the boys would have to tend me, see, because I was little, and I remember Maurice had a girlfriend that lived out on the edge of town, and I remember one night, and he had a rumble seat car. And that's another story, because they thought he was coming home by train, and he drove this car home from Colorado, because that's where he served his mission. But they had a rumble seat in it. You know what they are?
No.
Oh, well, it's the trunk that opens back this way, and there's a seat right there, and you could sit there. And so I was sitting in the back there, and there were two fellows hanging on the running board, and their hands through the window to hold them on the car, and they had the car inside of the car back. And somebody was sitting with me, and we were going out to visit Darlene. And it's funny how you remember little things like that. But that was probably one of the funnest rides I ever had. But Maurice was tending me, because somebody had that responsibility all the time. And even though I was getting older, because I was alone. But anyway, I don't know what that had to do with the price relationship.
I loved it.
But my brothers and sisters were always really, really good. Took care of me. Sigor was 17 when I was born, and he was pretty old, and he always was very careful to make sure that I was being treated right, and they all did. Maurice used to take me fishing, and he took me over to Salem Pond one Saturday morning, and he helped me catch 8 fish, and they weren't even fish that you'd eat, you know. But I was so proud of those 8 fish, we had to take them home. And when we went fishing, he always stopped and bought me a milkshake on the way home. That was Maurice. And but they all just did, you know, nice things for me and took care of me. I was a very spoiled child. And
so you're home there on 8th North. This is the one where your brothers would carry Mama down the stairs? Is that the same
Oh,
home?
no,
Or not yet?
that home was built in 1950.
Oh, okay. Okay.
When Daddy went
college.
to teach at the college.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And is that home still there?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have pictures of it?
They have, yeah.
Okay.
Mother and Daddy sold the home. Oh, Mother sold the home. You're supposed to go to me. After Daddy died, and bought a condominium, and that's where she lived.
Okay.
The rest of her life was in that condo.
Okay.
But I've been back to the house twice. The people that bought it, now it's turned into the business office for a bunch of apartments.
Oh, interesting.
That are right in the back of the house there.
Okay.
But she's very nice, and Barbara and Mary went with me, and she let us tour the house one time we were there. And,
oh, neat.
and it's still pretty much the same.
Okay.
It was a very nice home. But that came in 1950. So.
Okay.
And
so your childhood home, is that still there?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Well, we lived in 1, 2, 3, 4. It was the 5th home we lived in, Spanish Fort.
Okay.
And the 2 of them were right across the street from where the school built that house.
Okay.
And they then after they built it for the superintendent to live in, because they wanted Daddy there.
Yeah.
And then when Daddy went to BYU, then the new superintendent already had a home in Springville, and he didn't want to leave Springville, so he stayed there, and they sold the home. And Dr. Brockbank bought it, and as far as I know, it's still in the Brockbank family.
Okay.
Just behind the church on the corner.
Okay.
On First West, and always lived right next door to the church as a little kid.
It's a good place.
Yeah. And there was a Relief Society building building, just a small building where the Relief Society met and had all of their stuff behind the church. And I used to sit out on the front porch, and they'd come on Tuesdays. And when they'd have quilting bees and everything, I used to think, oh, it'd be so fun to get to go to Relief Society. And it always was. I love Relief Society.
Oh, that's neat. That's neat. So, can you think of some maybe challenges in your life that at the time were just maybe they seemed awful probably, but as you've grown on, you've seen how they've really shaped your life, or that's really broad, anything, just how a trial has helped you, or?
Well, I think it was a challenge when Mama died, and it was a challenge when Mother came into the home. And she was single, had never been married before, and she was very different from Mama, but she was a good mother to me. And she was a seamstress, and she sewed all of my clothes from there on out until I was in high school. And she was a club member, so we had a lot of club meetings at my home. And I remember once I was feeling sick, and Mother put me to bed, and she had club coming there that afternoon, and I was feeling around. I felt something on my tummy, and so I called Mother to look at it, and she said, oh. And so when the ladies came, she brought one of the ladies in. She said, you've got chicken pox. And sure enough, I did. And pretty soon I was all broke out.
Oh, no.
So I had chicken pox and went back to school for about 10 days and came down with mumps. So I missed a lot of that year of school. It seemed like it'd be right at the end when it's always fun. But there were things that were done differently after Mother came than what they had been with Mama. But she was good, and I loved Barbara and Mary. I feel like in many respects I just kind of helped raise them, and we've been close, and I'm so grateful for them now. So they're sweethearts. So.
Yes. So how do you feel, how has that shaped your life or affected how you react in other circumstances? Like how did having Mother come into the home and the difficultness of that situation change you for the better?
Well, you know, Steph, it's funny because I remember for some reason the night Mama died, and I had gone in to sleep with Maria in her bedroom, and I said to her, for some reason, I don't know why I would even have thought this, do you think Daddy will ever get married again? And she said, oh no, honey, he loved Mama too much. He loved Mama too much. And the funny thing of it was, after Mama died, my dad got really having a lot of stomach trouble and everything. And our doctor said to him, Owen, you just gotta get you a new life, or you're gonna pass away too and leave Arlene. And then he had another good friend tell him that. And so they got him talked into going to see a doctor in Salt Lake. And this doctor in Salt Lake said, Owen, he said, you can't do anything about the past, it's gone, and you know how much you love Genevieve. But he said, if you want to still be with your family and take care of things, he said, you have got to get a new life or you're not going to live more than a couple of years. And that was enough, I guess, to shock Daddy into it. And so he just started looking around, and he had some good friends in Nephi where we had lived. And he went down to visit Hoyt's because they had been such good friends, and Will was a judge, and he felt good with Judge Hoyt. And Judge Hoyt told him, he said, "Remember Vesta Wright? You hired her to come down here and teach," which Daddy did. And the interesting thing about that is that I've been typing up Daddy's little journals. And she is the only person he ever named in his little journal that he hired. And he said, "I went to Logan today to get teachers, and I hired Vesta Wright." And that was when, you know, when I was a baby, because I was born while she was down there. So it just all seems to be uncanny to me that he would do that. And then he went up and then he didn't know what to say to her. So he knocked on her door and he said, well, she said, I'm not wanting to come back to Nephi. I teach. I love my job here as home demonstration agent. And she just turned and laughed, thinking that's what the superintendent wanted. So then he had to call her on the phone and talk to her 2 or 3 times, and then she said, well, he can come up for a weekend. And so he did, and then eventually they got married. But I thought, you know, just things like that, it just seems to me that God has a plan for us, and if we just kind of are in tune, we will be able to make some good, wise decisions that will take us where it would be good for us to be. And so I just kind of had that philosophy. The fact that Heavenly Father loves us and He knows what we're doing and everything. And so I have never ever been despondent, I would say, over Daddy's death. We knew it was coming. And he was, or Grandpa's, he was very miserable. The last years were really tough on him. To have to be helped to get out of bed and to get into bed and to do anything that he did, and it was really hard on him. And bless his heart, he kept cheerful and doing, you know, the best that he could do, and that was a good example to me. And I just think it's a good example for all of us that we just trust in the Lord and know that He's in charge and that He's watching out for us. And that's what we need to do, is just be aware of Him and do the best that we can do and keep going.
That's all we can do, right?
Yeah.
Oh, good. We still have 12 minutes. Okay. Any other thoughts come to your mind?
Well, I was just thinking, I'm serving as a ward missionary right now, and our ward mission leader moved out of the ward, so they're having to call a new ward mission leader. And so they called the missionaries in last Sunday to tell us that it was going to be about a month and a half before they were going to be able to call a new mission leader, but that we should just keep functioning and going and doing. And I said, oh, good. I said, I was afraid you were going to release me. And I said, don't release me to Elder Rampton. And he said, we don't plan on it. And then he kind of laughed and he said, you know, most people your age are saying, I've done it, I've done it, I've done it. I said, oh, I just don't feel that way. I want to be a part of things. And I guess that's just me. I feel bad when we don't get our family together very often because I don't feel a part of it like we do when we're all together. I thought this last reunion that you and your mom salvaged for me was just the greatest thing, because everybody seemed to have a good time and we were all together, and it was just fun to see them. And so I just am grateful that I can still do, I still play the organ for church, and I don't do the greatest job some days, but some days I forget my glasses. So I'm trying to be better at that. But we have a great family, and I just love to get together with all of them and be able to see the little ones grow, and it's so fun when they see me. Your little boys, when they see me, they come running and give Grandma a hug, and how neat that is. Because I just hope all of them will get to know me, and you know, their little, Angela's little Camille does the same thing the minute she sees me. And Alan, after watching her at the reunion, said, "She just really loves you, Mom." I said, "Yes, she does." And because she's had a chance to get to know me. And you know, if I'm just some picture on the wall,
yes,
it's different, and it's the same way with all of us. And so I think it's good for us to get together and let the kids get acquainted with all of their family. Because maybe somebody isn't going to be here in a while and they'll need family, you know.
Yep.
So that's my philosophy.
I love it. Well, you're truly an inspiration, I think, to all of us. You're the only woman of your age I know that is still willing to babysit other people's children, and you volunteer, and it's amazing.
I love it, you know. And I don't feel like it's anything that is too hard on me. I have to pick Lila up every once in a while, but other than that, and I am very careful that I only do it where I'm in a safe place and can do it. I don't carry her upstairs. I won't do that because she can crawl up and she can crawl down. And I think we just have our capacities, and you need to learn, you know, that that's where they are. And I just am grateful that there's still some people that trust me.
We all trust you. We think you're amazing. So what other challenges can you think of in your life that have helped you be the woman you are today?
Well, I don't know. I feel like I did well with Grandpa because I was with him, and I remember John Bringhurst used to come every Wednesday night. He did that for 10 years and stay with Grandpa while I went to Relief Society or up to the Family History Library or something. He said, you need an out. And I felt like that was good for me. And I appreciated John and his willingness to do that. But Grandpa and John enjoyed each other, you know, and they had a good time together, and sometimes they'd watch TV, sometimes they'd just chit-chat, and I don't know what all they did, but they seemed to enjoy it. And I think that that was good for me because I didn't resent having to be with Grandpa. I was grateful that I could, and I was grateful that we had the aides come in because they could do things for him that I couldn't do. But then I was there to see that he had meals and that he could get where he needed to be and all. And I just think that sometimes if we become a little bitter about things, then we spoil life. It's too short to be bitter. And that's why I feel badly about some of the things that are happening in our family right now, because we have so so much to offer everybody. And if we just are close to Heavenly Father and live the way He wants us to, then I think we are blessed for it. And it's a true blessing. And I don't know what else to say other than that I'm happy and I feel good, and I have I have a knee that doesn't work exactly right now, but so what? A lot of people have knees that don't work right. We've had 5 people in our ward get knee replacements this summer, or this spring, you know. And I thought, okay, yours isn't that bad. And so be grateful.
Is there anything you want to say to all of your family that you would want them to remember you by, or advice you want to give, or just kind of encapsulating the whole conversation today?
Well, I think one of my favorite scriptures all my life has been, seek not the counsel of the Lord, but to take counsel from His hand. For behold, He counseleth in wisdom and in justice and in something. Justice and mercy all your days. Now, that, and then I think just having a goal to each day do something that will make a difference in somebody's life. And I think that sometimes when we start to feel sorry for ourselves and get down to the, oh me, oh my, poor me, we lose sight of that which can bring us the most happiness. And I just think that we have such a tremendous family, and the majority of those who are struggling are making a fight at it, and they're coming out on top and getting blessings because of it. And I just am overwhelmed sometimes when we have things that people lose sight of Heavenly Father's way, and then they lose the happiness in their life too. And I just think, so I just say to all of you, be happy, be good, love the Lord and serve Him. And remember, I love you, every one of you.
I've been reading through the book you made us when we were little about heroes, and just, I think the more we get to know each of our family members, our ancestors, and those who are still living around us, the more we can recognize that each of us truly are heroes. And I'm amazed and inspired by the things you put together. I feel like you were guided by the Spirit, and you felt like my grandkids and my children need to read these things, and they need to have this. And even if it is 15 years later from when you made the book, that it's really impacted me. But I just think it's amazing what you've put together, and the information and the stories we have about our family members that can inspire us and help us see what true heroes are and help us become those. So I think it's really awesome, and you're a hero, Grandma.
And I feel like I was guided. Doing my dad's history was important to me because he was a tremendous man, and doing Grandpa's history. Grandpa did the majority of his, but I typed everything and could make suggestions, and then I've added a little bit at the end. But I think that just having that help you to know them, you know, rather than just a picture on a wall and you don't know anything about them. And I feel badly because I didn't have anybody really. Aunt Real helped me some, but with my mama's, because her family were not close, for years. She'd lived up here in Utah and they'd been down there, and she was active Mormon and they were something else, and it just made some separations between that. They didn't know Mama as well. And so I think that the fact that we have what we have, Wilmer helped me some, was good. And so I just am grateful that they're there. And I was thinking the other day, maybe I ought to go in and add some things that I have remembered that I didn't put in. And maybe that's inspiration telling me I should do that. So get off my duff.
Oh, you're amazing, Grandma. 1 minute. Okay. Well, anything you want to finish with?
No, just thanks for doing this.
Thank you.
Good.
I've been blessed by doing this. This has been really special today. So
I think that sometimes the funny little stories that you remember are,